Hi guys, this is Tarot Down Under coming to you from Valos, a port town. Let me show you a bit of Valos. Oh look, can you see it out there? Oh, beautiful. If you decide you want to come to Europe at any point, you're umming and ahhing about the cost, come in winter. It's not cold and everything's a quarter of the price. You got to love that. Okay, just another Grecian thing before I move on to today's reading. On our last night in Athens, we were off to dinner and we could hear chanting and singing, and I thought, aha, it sounds like a demonstration. Intrepid viewers, you know how I love a protest. So as we walked, it got louder and louder, and we turned a corner and there were all these riot police just on both sides of the road there, and they've got their body armour on and their Darth Vader helmets and all of that. But because they're Greek riot police, they're lounging on their motorbikes, their visors are up, chain smoking cigarettes. It's a different vision. And we said to them, look, can we get through? Is it okay to go through? And they went, of course. It's so casual. Anyway, there were tens of thousands of people protesting again about what their government's doing with refugees. So that was so exhilarating to be part of. But now I'm 4 hours away in Valos, and today I wanted to look a bit at what's happening economically. I have said on previous readings that the stock market, I'm not alone in saying this, of course, has been on a sugar high, being artificially kept on life support. We're always told when you give tax cuts to the wealthy, they'll employ so many more people. No, they don't. They put it into the stock market of their own companies and their friends. And you know, the Federal Reserve cannot cut rates anymore. It's the same in Australia, UK, and they've slashed all that. Normally they can use that. So if there was a crisis like now, they've got some levers to pull, but they've already used them as favours for the boys' club. So they haven't got the levers. So sad but true, these things have to play out in order for the Yeti to feel a bit of pain. You know, he's had a totally charmed life as an individual, and he's had an even more charmed presidency, as we know, day by agonising day, where he commits 7 impeachable offences before lunch. And there he is. But I feel it's starting to unravel. Now, I've deliberately avoided the coronavirus to read on, largely because I'm travelling and my daughter's travelling as well, so I don't want to put any energy or focus on it. But I couldn't help but notice in my news feed today that after the CPAC conference, and 1 or 2 people have apparently tested positive, and now a couple of the inner circle of henchmen have put themselves in self-quarantine because they were around Trump. He will hate that. That's Matt Gaetz, the awful Mark Meadows, and Trump as a legendary germaphobe. See, this is where his worlds are starting to collide, isn't it? You know. So I'm going to have a quick look at the stock market. And the other thing that's happened is the oil price war. So let's have a look. Stock market. Stock market. I think I'll move to the floor. I'm such an old hippie. I'm actually much more comfortable on the floor. So, hi. What is happening with the stock market? Bear in mind, those who watch my videos regularly, the stock market is not the same thing as the economy. And it makes me really cranky when those two things are fused together. I'm deliberately looking at the stock market, and then I'll have a quick look at the economy, which is where we live. Okay. It's a strange shaped table here. All rightio. Well, from where we're sitting, and I've always thought one of the advantages of not having a lot of money is when these things happen, you've got less to lose. But this is sort of talking about the big players as much as the everyday people who are affected by these decisions. Now, on top, they have judgment. So they've been playing this game and riding this ride and milking it to the max. And you know what? It's the time of judgment. So this is that Wake Up America card in the Rider-Waite deck. People are being called, it's judgment time. The world is the end of one whole cycle and the beginning of another. Of course, it's also talking about the world. We are all affected by this. So all this protectionist 1930s America go it alone stuff is silly, is the kind word, and deluded is more real. The world is in fact impacted by all of it. Walking away, I think this is the flight. This is the flight of money away from the stock market. Now, the longer term players will have been reading the tea leaves themselves. They'll be pumping money into gold and the other things that they do. They'll be buying up real estate and so forth, moving away from the stock market. The Eight of Cups is a voluntary moving away. The cups are still up, but there is this movement away. And here she comes, the High Priestess. Now, she operates on different levels, the High Priestess, and one of her claims is hidden agendas, and it couldn't be more right here, because who is manipulating the stock market, who gets the benefit of a stock market rise and a stock market fall, and all of that. This is the behind the scenes, in other words, of what's happening with the stock market. So the mum and dad investors who will be worried about this stuff, this whole little mini spread is more about the big money players. Now, we started with judgment and it finishes with justice. So harsh as it might be, and I hope you understand what I mean by this, this is the recession that we all needed to have in order to move things along for both Yeti 1, Trump, and Yeti 2, Boris Johnson, as two major players. And in Australia, we voted in a Conservative government again. Why? Oh, because the economy's good? Well, is it? No, it's not, which brings me to the economy. So it's a weird thing, isn't it? It's, look, what is good for the economy is actually spending, government spending. And because all countries in the West bought this line of neoliberalism, you call them the neocons, small government, you know, let the private sector build bridges. Well, they didn't build motorways. Well, now you have to pay for the toll on the motorway and pay for it when it collapses. Again, all this, you know, all this stuff. The good times, in inverted commas, where you actually had class mobility and people being secure after the war, had big government and strong unions. So we've now got small government and weak unions. It's the opposite of what works for working families. You know, it just makes me so cranky. But let's see what's happening for the economy. I saw just the other day, it was an interesting stat that in 1985, so I think Reagan might have still been in, a male breadwinner could support a family of 4 in terms of housing, health, basic education, probably not the college fund, but basic education and a car, etc., maybe 2 cars. And that would cost the equivalent of 30 weeks of the year salary. Now, that costs 53 weeks. 53 weeks of the year to pay for what your very basic functions as a family. That's not good for obvious reasons. So things are getting more out of reach. In Australia, you could afford a house that was 7 times your annual salary was the basic ratio, and now it'd be like 30 times your salary, and you can't do it. It's shocking everywhere. Okay, the economy. Shut up, Lena. All right. Well, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, but there is going to be an uplift. I'm quite surprised. The hermit, this is the market contracting, getting tight. This is partly coronavirus and also the oil stuff, which I'll be looking at next. So there's going to be this panic sort of contraction. This is the Emperor card. There's a bossy energy. It could be Trump himself. He would love to be Emperor Donald, but I don't know if it's so much him or just generally big figures in the financial world that pull the strings. They're active, but they're running out of options. The good news is the 3 of Cups. I think things are going to take a dive and then come back up, because it also, there's the Empress card, which is sort of hopefully plenty to go around. What we call plenty is, you know, a subjective thing. If you're already struggling, you'll continue to struggle. And that includes most of us, because when this trip's over, I'm going to have to go back and save money to go to the dentist again, and so on. But there is a reprieve from these harsher cards of contraction and restriction of the Emperor telling people what to do and what they can't do and all of that. And then comes these are 2 cards infinitely of feminine energy. So I think it will get marginally easier. These are both summary cards, if you look. So venture to say in the summer. Now, yet another digression, viewers. I think we're looking at cycles and loops here. I think it'll get very bad in the next month or 2. I think it'll get a bit better by the end of summer. It might be that the coronavirus starts to retreat, and the oil stuff, we'll see what's happening there. But we are not out of the woods yet in terms of all our economies. Further down the track, this is unsustainable, and no one's talking on the hustings about the $1 trillion debt on Trump watch. Oh, I know what I was going to say before. We voted Conservative the last election, and everyone that I knew was upset by that. But I said, you know what? I'm happy, because when the economy really takes a dive, they'll be at the helm, because they always say, oh, it's the Democrats, it's Labor in our case. They are always the mad spenders. They can't manage the economy, right? That's the same story. Same in the UK. So when Boris Johnson got in, when Scott Morrison got in Australia, look, you know what? They can be in the driver's seat for the next big one. You know, so let's hope it happens before November 3rd from that perspective. Yeah. Oh, all right. I'm now going to quickly look at the oil situation. Now, most of us, particularly those of you who are subscribers to this channel and stuff, we want to see an end to fossil fuels, right? That's one of the big things we talk about in the forum and stuff in terms of climate change. But again, you have this classic example of low oil is seen as a problem, low oil prices. Why is that? It's because of these what were they called? I heard them called petro-kleptocracies. So that's like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, even Venezuela to some extent. Lots of oil and it does the money, the revenue, the profits don't go to the people. So these will be affected. So let's see what's happening with this oil war. Saudi and Russia and the oil war. Saudi and Russia and the oil war. Saudi and Russia and the oil war. Okay. Oh, the devil card will. Oh, nasty. High Priestess again. There's lots of behind the scenes negotiating going on with these issues, everyone. So here's the message about money, the Page of Pentacles coming forward. Not what they want to hear. This is the news this week. It's 30-year low. They're thinking it's going to drop further as Saudi keeps pumping more oil, as does Russia. The devil. This, you could say, is our dependence on fossil fuels. This actually makes an argument long-term for the Green New Deal and everything else. We are at the mercy of these people, same in Australia as everywhere else. We're at the mercy of the fossil fuel giants, and Australia is a big commodity-driven economy. We're really good at digging holes in the ground for coal, iron ore, really good. And here we have the devil card. So that's what I think is being talked about here, our addiction to fossil fuels collectively as we enter end phase capitalism. It's going to be back to the drawing board for ideas of how to deal with that, because a low oil price impacts badly on those states like Texas and stuff who are now producing oil, leading to really ugly behaviours here. Then the Three of Pentacles, dark money. A couple of things spring to mind with the Three of Pentacles here. Right. In relation to Donald Trump's future from now till the end of the year, he's got away with so much. But his blatant friendships with these kleptocracies and stuff are going to start to collide against each other. So Kushner being best friends with the MAD, MBS, Entertainment Channel Only, who's just been arresting more of his relatives, and Putin. And now they're feuding with each other. He's done everything his puppet master wanted, Trump this is, by pulling American troops out of northern Syria. But this just goes to show Saudi doesn't give a flying toss what Trump does. Russia doesn't give a flying toss what Trump does, really. They use him. Right. Okay. So this, I think, is going to play out negatively for the mindless mollusk. And we will not know even what these deals are. This is people getting together behind closed doors, the hidden agendas again, the group work. So I don't think America will even be in the loop. And the other thing I'd like to point out, viewers, is the world economy traditionally has been pegged to the American dollar, which was known as so many barrels of oil, and the American dollar became this economic thing, the petrodollar. Because of the stupid, vicious, pointless sanctions on Iran, tell us what you really think, Lena, that just make people suffer. What that meant was Iran had no choice but to sell its oil to get around the sanctions, and so it accepted other currencies, primarily the yen. And so now America has shot itself in the foot and possibly in the head that the petrodollar is now not the exclusive benchmark anymore. So all this filthy stuff that's been going on for a few years now is starting to coalesce. And I think we're going to see a very interesting summer. Now, regardless of what happens, if Bernie is allowed to go forward, should he win the delegates, or he might not get the numbers, or he might not, whatever. The ideas are out there now. So even though middle America might go, socialist, we're just such pure capitalists. The economy's good, the economy's good. Yeah, I can't afford to pay for anything I could 5 years ago, but the economy's good. I've heard it's good. I watch Fox and I can tell you it's good. I think people are going to start to wake up. I sincerely hope so. And the same here in Australia. And so I guess what I'm saying is I really hope and pray there's going to be a lift in consciousness. That's why we've got to look at the next 4 to 5 years. I think like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and these other ideas are coming through, but they're hitting a wall of conservatism. But they're not going to be radical ideas in a year or two. They're going to be the pathway forward. And I think we will all benefit from that. So I love you guys. And I'll come to you from my next stop, which will be the island of Skopelos. Mwah. Who cares about the dentist? Bye for now. Love you and miss you. I must say, I'm genuinely missing doing the personal readings one-on-one. I thought I needed 3 or 4 weeks off to freshen up that sort of space, and I'm really missing it. So as soon as I'm back in Australia, I'll be in touch with you. But in the meantime, stay safe, do all the sensible things about protecting your space, but other than that, live your lives, and bye for now. Bye-bye.